One of the things that I myself, as well as many other gamers, like to do every time October rolls around is play theme-appropriate Halloween games. Now, this could be scary horror type games. I'm personally not a fan of those myself, but it could also just be games that have spooky kind of themes. Stuff like Castlevania, or maybe even Ghouls and Ghosts. Though, if you really want a true horror experience, you could always just play something like Superman 64 all the way through, am I right? But thinking about how people play certain games around Halloween time got me thinking that it's not just Halloween when people like to play certain games during certain times of the year. And sure, other holidays maybe don't have quite the same appeal when it comes to that. For example, somebody who's like, hey, every Easter I play Bugs Bunny games because, bunnies, right? For Easter. But one time of the year that I have noticed people playing certain types of games would be summer. Now, there's a couple reasons for this. The first reason that I see is people like to play games that just sort of have that summertime kind of vibe to them. For example, I know Super Mario Sunshine is a game that people like to play during the summer because in that game you're essentially at this like summer beach resort type of place, and it just feels appropriate to play during that time of the year. Now, the other reason that I see is summer is the time for a lot of us, especially looking back, that we had lots of free time to play certain games. So maybe we have a tradition where like every summer I play this game because I have time to play it, and it reminds me of back in the day when I had initially done the same thing. Alright, now what about December and the holiday time? I mean, this was a huge opportunity for many of us to play games both back in the day and perhaps now as adults as well, since typically you have some time off of school, time off of work, whatever it is you're doing. Typically we wouldn't be playing holiday themed games. I mean, it's not like the big game was Rudolph the Reindeer, the video game, the must-have game of this holiday season, and all the kids were begging their parents for it. No. Instead, it was just all the big releases, the big video games that had come out that year. This was your chance to potentially get them as a gift. So the video games that people remember getting around the holiday time for gifts could be a whole mishmash of different types of games. And perhaps you have fond memories, and every time the holiday season rolls around, you want to play some of those games again during that time because it takes you back to that time period and perhaps kind of taps in a little bit to that special feeling you had when you first got that game and played through it. And then we get to birthdays. Of course, a lot of us have some very special fond memories of receiving certain games for a past birthday. So every time our birthday rolls around every year, maybe we want to play one of those games that we remember getting for our birthday. Here's the thing, because retro games are often so heavily attached to nostalgia, it makes sense that in order to capitalize on that nostalgia, we'd want to recreate some of the circumstances. Whether it's, playing it on an older TV, or of course, playing it during the same time of the year that we remember playing it in order to just kind of tap into that same feeling we had. Alright, but let's get back to Halloween, since Halloween is probably the biggest example by far of people playing certain types of games at a certain time of the year. Now, I know that Halloween is a very US-centric type of holiday, and we have a lot of viewers across the pond, so I'd be very curious what your perspective on all of this is. The reason why Halloween is so conducive to this is that there's essentially an entire genre of video games made just for it, being the horror genre or survival horror, what have you. Now, personally, like I said, I'm not really into those types of games just because I have enough stress and anxiety in my real life that I don't need to be playing these games that are intentionally stressing me out and creating anxiety. Now, for some people it doesn't affect them the same way, and it's actually kind of enjoyable, especially if you get used to it. If you play a lot of those types of games, you just kind of get numb to the idea of being genuinely scared, and it's more just interesting and fun. So I totally get why people like it. Now, what I do like, as you probably can guess, is stuff like Castlevania, the Ghouls and Ghosts series, any of those older 2D sprite-based games. I love that stuff because it's not actually scary, it's more just the kind of spooky themes to it. which is very cool. Also stuff like Zombies Ate My Neighbors, even something like the Darkstalkers series. Great 2D based, fun games that don't scare you at all, but are still very theme appropriate and very fun. And you know what? I actually may have spoken too soon, because I'm a huge sucker for the Resident Evil series. I love those games, and those could definitely be categorized as scary games, especially like, say, the remake of, the more recent remakes of 2 and 3, especially 2. Those can be some pretty scary games. I had my friend play the remake of Resident Evil 2, and he was really on edge. It was actually pretty funny to see that. But yeah, so I totally, in that way, I get where people are coming from wanting those scary games. And so there you have it from me. Resident Evil is, I guess, the one exception I would make when it comes to scary games. But I would never really dip into much of anything else, especially the stuff that deals more with the psychological type of terror, things like Silent Hill. I would never be interested in that. But of course, I do want to hear what types of games you all play around Halloween time, as well as other times of the year. Certain games you maybe play during the summer, during your birthday time, around the holidays. I always love hearing the memories that you all have to share of games you played when you were younger, and just kind of what some of your tendencies are now as an older retro gamer. I love hearing that stuff. So be sure to leave those comments down below as always, and I will see ya in the next video. He's the